So I want to welcome everybody to our session today. You are going to be joining us for the session, as you see here, on Connecting to Community, Innovative Peer Training for Harm Reduction Workers. My name is Gwyneth, and I am so happy to be here. And I'm joined by my colleague, Jillian, and we will be your moderators for today's session. Jillian's waving there. Before we get started, I just want to review a few housekeeping notes, and then I'll introduce our speakers and we'll begin the session. So the first thing I'd like to do is to draw your attention to the bottom of your screen where you will see the chat feature icon. You can use the chat feature to submit questions, but please type the word question in all caps before you add your question to it. So question, colon, question, all caps, and then colon, and then your question. And that just makes it easier for us to find them. The presenters will be taking questions at the end of their presentation, and we will be gathering those questions. And at the end, we'll do our best to ask as many questions as we can during the time that we have. We ask you to please ensure that your microphone is on mute until the Q&A portion of the session. Also, please note that we will be recording this session to upload to the conference website for future viewing by those who have registered for the conference. And you'll be able to access the platform for about 90 days, actually for 90 days following the conference. There will be some documents, or in a document in the session page at the end of the workshop that you can access. And then we kindly ask you to complete a short evaluation at the end of this session, because your feedback is very important and appreciated. And we use this to inform future sessions and future events such as this conference. And lastly, we ask you to respectfully ask all those who are attending today's session to please engage with each other thoughtfully and respectfully, and always consider the impact of your words and interactions on others. And as your moderators, we won't tolerate any abusive or inappropriate behavior, and will ensure that anyone who engages in such behavior is removed from the session. So now I'd like to introduce our presenters for this session. I'll ask them to put themselves on video. We have Emma Beer and Stephanie Moulton from South Riverdale Community Health Center in Toronto. So welcome, Stephanie and Emma, and I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Just trying to minimize this. Okay. There we go. Welcome, everyone. So I'm Emma, and this is Steph, and we're going to be talking to you guys about our project, the Harm Reduction Worker Training and Apprenticeship Project, which is run out of South Riverdale Community Health Center here in Toronto. This is a 16-week training program followed by an apprenticeship for people with lived experience wanting to get involved in harm reduction work. And we developed partnerships across 7 agencies, 15 programs for people to get involved in harm reduction work. And together we've made a beautiful little community of eager harm reduction workers. So next slide, please. Something. Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys, we were just delayed there. Okay. Not. All right, next slide. Sorry, I'm just having some issue with the slides. They're not going. Gwyneth or Jillian, are you able to help with that?
I would maybe just, we could try on sharing the screen and sharing again, but sure. What I see right now is the About HRW program.
Yeah, that's not where we should be.
Okay,
I'm just going to stop it for a second. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go.
There we go. Excellent.
Sorry.
Okay. So, oh, where'd it go? There we go. Sorry, guys. It's okay. All right. Can you minimize that for me, please? Right.
All right, here we are.
Okay, so we like to start off each of our sessions that we run with a land acknowledgement, and we thought this one was appropriate to use today. So I'm just going to read this out for everyone, and we're going to talk a little bit more about land acknowledgements through the presentation. We acknowledge the existence of Turtle Island. We acknowledge that land ownership is a colonizer concept. We acknowledge that many nations predating colonizer contact lived on these lands. We acknowledge that these nations lived in relationship with the land. We acknowledge that the nations traditionally living on these lands had complex and effective political structures. We acknowledge that they were smart and possessed scientific knowledge based on thousands of years of observational research. We acknowledge that at no point prior to contact did the nations of Turtle Island need to be saved or civilized. We acknowledge that every Canadian has been misinformed by the education system. The education system has been spouting half-truths and outright lies for generations now, and it is our responsibility to know the truth. We commit to listening and learning. We commit to hearing truths that are ugly. We commit to exploring and assessing our own defensiveness. We commit to a better world, and we commit to being part of a society that will create a roadmap to reconciliation. Thank you.
So some introductions. I'm Emma. I'm the health promoter of the project. I've been working in harm reduction for about 5 years, doing things from working in a safe consumption site to working on programs like ours, the Harm Reduction Worker Project. And I'm super passionate about social justice and building community. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here with everyone and really honored to be sharing this space.
I'm Stephanie Moulton. I've been working in frontline work for about 13 years, but I've been living harm reduction for far longer than that. I come with lived experience of various things that we may talk about through the presentation. But this has been one of my very favorite projects to date that I've ever been a part of. And so I'm just really excited to share it with all of you today.
So we just wanted to start the session by sharing this little when we practice harm reduction. This is a really great way to set the tone in our classes. We read this out loud in the first session for both of our cohorts of students, just to show people our values and know that they won't be judged for being here. So I'm going to read these out loud. We are saying, when we practice harm reduction, we are saying that you're worthy of care in so many ways. We're letting you know that we don't judge you for where you are at. We know that you're capable of change. We're reminding you that your life matters. We're letting you know that seeing you high does not scare or threaten us. And I just want to pay attention to this one for a minute because I think a lot of people with lived experience of drug use have this fear that they can't access services when they're under the influence. And we really wanted to make an open, safe space for people to come to class and know that they can be in any state and we're not going to judge them for that, that we're not scared of them, and that they're safe here. And just reading that out loud, you could see people's body language change, knowing that they're allowed to be there as they are. We are showing you that we can meet you where you're at because this is your experience, not ours. We are respecting you as a person who can make decisions. We leave behind expectations and focus on our relationships instead. We're giving you the space to be honest and not ashamed. And we are telling you that we love you. So again, this is just a really great way to show our values in the program and make people feel safe in class.
A little bit about Harm Reduction Worker Training and Apprenticeship Program. So we modeled this program after the Toronto Community Hep C program. They have a very successful peer training series. We didn't use it exactly the same as they use in the Hep C program. We did tweak it to serve our population specifically. We provided and developed 16 weeks of comprehensive harm reduction relevant training, and this was specifically for people with lived experience or living experience. We recognize that there are onboarding trainings that are required in order to work in harm reduction based settings, and so we made sure that we provided that as well. And those trainings could look like, like prevention of violence in the workplace, AODA for Accessibility Ontario, and also WMIS and all those required trainings for onboarding. We held makeup sessions for those who needed it. Folks needed to attend 14 out of 16 sessions in order to graduate. And so we wanted to make sure that we were reducing those barriers, because a lot of people have a lot of things going on in terms of medically and whether they're housed or not. So we did hold a makeup day, and people had a chance to attend that so that they could ensure they graduated. After they finished all of the training portion, then we had a 6-month paid apprenticeship that we could provide different hosts and different organizations, different hosting programs within harm reduction. So there were programs within South Riverdale Community Health that we had spots for. And then we also we provided ongoing supports, meetups, engagement opportunities. And I think by the end of it, we had 15 different apprenticeship opportunities. So that's 15 unique programs. And we were able to place people in 7 different organizations within the city of Toronto.
So a bit about our guiding philosophy. You see on the image on the right, you're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work of art simultaneously. This is really important to us. We acknowledge that everybody is at a different space in their journey, and just because you are struggling with one thing in your life does not mean that it prevents you from working on other parts of your life. Every person who walks through the door as a service user has the potential to leave as a service provider. This is another really important piece of guiding philosophy, which comes from Rafi Balian, who is the founder of harm reduction programming at South Riverdale. His death anniversary was actually on the first graduation day, which brought up a lot of emotion for people in the community as they're watching a project be fulfilled that Rafi really would have loved, or that we hope he would have loved. So we want to just hold space for that. And yeah, we hope Rafi is watching over us and is proud. So another one is everyone deserves a second, third, or fourth chance. We took a very non-punitive approach. We do not get mad at people for not making class. We're not in the business of telling people necessarily what to do. We're just there to support people in the different ways that they're able to engage. We celebrate changes, no matter how small. You see tons and tons of changes in people throughout the duration of this program, which is so beautiful to see. And Steph's going to talk about some of those changes later. But a really important part of that is celebrating each other and, telling people that they matter and telling people that you're proud of them, because people don't often get that. And it makes all the difference. We're all different, and those differences should be honored. It's really cool to come to a classroom of people with different lived experiences and to, find community and shared experiences, but also find connection in varying experiences and how things look different for people depending on who they are and where they lie and, intersectionality and things like that. A lot of our groups were spent sharing experiences and, talking them through. So yeah, and those differences in people should be honored. And lastly, we're all capable of change, and we're not defined by our past. We have people coming into this group from all walks of life, going through all different experiences, and we're not holding people to their past experiences or their past mistakes. People walk into this room because they wanted to make a difference in their own lives and in other people's lives. So it's unfair to hold people to mistakes that they may have made in their past.
So neurodiversity affirming practice is kind of at the forefront in the development of our curriculum. And I really wanted to share this today as both of us are neurodivergent. And so we really recognize that there's a lot missing out of traditional learning environments. And a lot of our folks, there's some intersectionality between drug use and neurodivergence. And we really wanted to provide a space where people could learn in different ways, and hopefully we could increase the success of those people. So the first one I want to talk about is intersectionality. And this is where we're introducing identity, social location in the class setting. We are identifying our own intersections so that we may better understand power dynamics, even between ourselves as a worker, as a client, and as a colleague. The second one is respecting autonomy. So people are capable of making their own decisions, both colleagues and clients. We do not speak for others, we stand beside them. We talk about validating differences, so leaving space open for varying perspectives and finding value in all of them. We also want to presume competence from folks. You're a smart human who's already have tons of knowledge in your head before we gathered here today. Let's work together in a way that feels good for everyone. It's really important to reframe expectations. We want to reevaluate what the goal is and find ways to get there in small steps. There is an unconventional way to achieve this goal, and let's try it. Let's find what it is. Promoting self-advocacy. I was getting ahead of myself there. So modeling self-advocacy approaches increases confidence as the new skill is perfected. We develop our muscle memory to self-advocacy when we practice in safer spaces. We also are big with rejecting neuronormativity. So we want to throw normal out the window and embrace uniqueness. And there's a lot of conversations about what normal is and what it isn't. And I think that there's more questions to be answered when we talk about what's normal and what's not. We like to prioritize lived and living experiences. We want to validate those experiences as equally valuable as formal education. We want to nurture positive self-identity, for example, workshops on addressing negative self-talk, self-limiting beliefs, creating safe spaces, activities that nurture positive self-identity, such as our workplace compliments and our seed activity, which you will get access to after the presentation. We also want to provide equitable access by adapting systems and environments. For example, we want to change the classroom environment or the layout to best fit everyone's needs and depending on what accommodations folks need that day. We also want to honor all forms of communication. So observing body language, when people are good or they're not good, we do like the thumbs up, thumbs down. So we know if we need to support that person extra or if they just need a couple of minutes to just take a breather. Texting, phone calls, email, speaking in person rather than on the phone. Those are all things that are really important to accommodate, especially when we're talking about folks who are neurodivergent. Sometimes we can express ourselves in writing, and that's a little bit easier. Sometimes art and drawing and coloring, or even excusing oneself. So we'll go over to slide 9 here. And so, oh, that is it. That's you? Okay. Sorry, folks.
So we're going to talk about a bit about our program design, just things to consider. So as we talked about learning styles, we cater to an experiential learning style. So that's tactile, hands-on learning, different ways of engagement, and we found that to be really great for people. I think a lot of people, especially neurodivergent folks, have a hard time with just like sitting down and reading a slideshow, and things like introducing things like colors and different fonts and having videos and pictures and things like that, we found to be really helpful. So yeah, again, so working with neurodivergent folks, keeping folks engaged and refocusing. We had folks with brain injuries, concussions, history of overdoses, and those are all things to just be aware of. So you can take a trauma-informed approach in the way that we talk about these things. Emotional regulation tools and strategies. We're all coming with different mental health challenges, which calls for different tools for emotional regulation. So as we're teaching the course, we're teaching different tools for emotional regulation, not only for the peers to pass along to their clients, but for them themselves at work and in their personal lives, which we found very useful for folks. And people were like, I tried this after class and it worked great. And it was really awesome to pass those things along. Institutionalized experiences. So people are coming from foster care, mental health facilities, have a lot of experience in incarceration. And these things can be very triggering for people. So it's important to take into consideration what people are coming into the room with. Serious illnesses, hearing loss, and vision challenges. It's important to, cater your presentation and the way that your facilitation style to people with different varying abilities in order for everyone to be able to participate in their own way. Neurodiverse trauma-informed practices. So we did a lot of content warnings for things that necessitated that, and we practiced a lot of grounding techniques and things like that. Homelessness and chaotic living situations. So a lot of people in our group were coming from being street involved or had a history of homelessness. These are things to take into account because it impacts participation. It can be difficult to expect someone to come to class and to show up as their best self if they were sleeping rough the night before and didn't have access to food before coming to class, which is so it's important to take that into account. And we made like food security a very important part of our class. So we would always, each class had a hot meal for folks to enjoy together. We're taking into account violence in the community. So people are constantly facing violent situations, whether that be from their community members, from police, from other social services. And it's really important to keep that take that into account, because at first glance, why are we any different? You want to, assume that people have had probably pretty bad experiences with service providers. And just because we say that we are different doesn't mean that, people will automatically believe that. So you got to show that. Advocacy. So along with the project comes a lot of advocacy that you're going to be doing for your participants. That includes letters of support, that includes ODSP and OW letters, probation and bail, and housing. So lots of things come up, and you got to be prepared to, help people with that in order to, because people need, assistance with things on the side in order to succeed in the course. Keeping lines of communication open even after blowouts. This is a big one. So as we said, like, people deserve a first, second, third, fourth chance. We're not going to cut the line of communication just because, you had a bad day. But we really opened that line of communication to talk about it and know that, like, people knew that they wouldn't be punished if they acted out, or if they missed a class or something. We want to keep that line of communication open so that we can actually move to problem solving. Text and phone call reminders. We really utilized this, and people were really grateful for that. We gave people text reminders the day before every class for the weeks of training. And people really appreciated that. They're like, some days you just don't know what day it is when you wake up. So that was really helpful for folks in graduating and staying involved. We held a makeup session, like we mentioned, where we had attendance from everyone who attended each session. And then for each session, we held a makeup session on the same day. It was a big day, 8-hour day, where we went and covered all of the topics so that people could graduate if they wanted to. And TCHCP. So we followed the Toronto Community Hep C program's guide of learning with tweaks to be a harm reduction worker. But that was a really important project within ours. And it's really helpful to have another program to kind of chat to and draw from and bounce ideas off of.
All right, so why we did it. Nothing about us without us. So we recognize that it's important to have people at the forefront of harm reduction. They need to be folks with lived experience. We need to have input in how the programs are designed that we participate in. And so we wanted to create and provide low barrier training and employment opportunities identified as community resource gap by community members. So Emma and I have worked in different programs in different organizations throughout the city of Toronto. And we kind of saw throughout our time that there were folks that were really interested in becoming part of these kinds of organizations, but there were some barriers in order to get them there. We recognize that investing in community creates healthier community members and reduces isolation. And we know that we just went through a couple of years of a whole lot of isolation, especially for people who use drugs. And there's been a lot of overdose deaths. So people were looking for reasons to come back together and build community. The results of these programs go far beyond people's participation in the program. The teachings translate to real life skills. Nearly 75% of us have had interactions with the justice system throughout our lives. And this adds an extra layer of stigma and trauma because a lot of us think, you know, I've got records. How could I ever get hired at a place? There's a lot of places that won't hire you as soon as they've heard that you've done time. And then, you know, we recognize that drug user lives are so valuable and we have the power to work towards a better world where no one is left behind. We also really wanted to do this because we love to debunk myths about drug culture. We want to fight stigma. That's why we did it.
So here's just a few pictures of the first days. So we had 2 cohorts of training. So both cohorts had 20 people. In total, we actually had 39 people in total. So you can see on the left there's Steph in session 1. And then on the right, we have session 1 in February. I just want to like kind of draw attention to the room layout here. In the first session on the left, we had the full room. But the room that we have access to is like it halves. So sometimes other programs were using the other side of the room. And we did notice that people really liked the bigger room a lot better, especially from like a perspective of, you know, getting to know people first before having to have your elbows touching and things like that. People felt much more comfortable in a bigger space. And we found having people set up in a circle was the best way. And it's just important to draw attention to these things and think about the way that space impacts learning, and especially for neurodivergent folks.
All right, the recruitment process. So here is the poster that we circulated. So we developed like an information session after we developed our curriculum. And we wanted to reach out to community organizations and to Toronto community housing buildings to host info sessions and Q&A periods. We also hosted a couple sessions as well on site for just folks that were attending different programming at South Riverdale on Queen East. We also met with program leads in all of the different programs that we have at South Riverdale. And we did small info sessions for them as well to see if their programs had capacity to take on students or apprentices rather, and see if we can match potential applicants with programs in a good way. We reconnected with individuals who have expressed interest in doing paid harm reduction work in the past. So because of all the different positions that we've held in different areas of the city, we knew that there were people that we needed to reach out to, and we knew that those people already probably had other people in mind that were also interested. We sent out a recruitment poster, which you can see here, to different harm reduction programs in Toronto, and kind of gave them the option of getting a hold of us and letting us know if they wanted to host a training session at their organization, and a couple of places did. We had a total of 40 spots in our training program, and we received 70 plus applications. So really tough choices. And so there definitely is demonstrated need for more of this to happen in the city of Toronto and probably the greater Toronto area.
Yeah, we have no shortage of people applying. So we've actually received like close to 100 applications now. So we're talking about eligibility. So the primary eligibility standard was lived in living experience of drug use, homelessness, sex work, incarceration, or institutionalization, a type of differing ability or navigating mental health systems. It was 80% of our program participants identified as drug users, which was our main target population. Another eligibility requirement was that you have not completed a harm reduction training and apprenticeship program before. This was really to reach folks who haven't had the opportunity to do something like this in the past, which the majority of our folks were. Another one has significant gaps in employment history or has difficulty getting hired or succeeding in traditional employment environments. And we got people to submit a letter of interest expressing their interest in the program, which could be handwritten or drawn or typed. So those letters were submitted to me, and then Steph offered herself up for any editing or help with letters, so that there was no barrier there.
All right, enhancing and expanding. So we know that the City of Toronto has had a number of training programs for people with lived experience before. The difference with this one is that the other training programs that were offered never had capacity to provide a paid apprenticeship before now. So that was a big draw. It was very attractive to a lot of people, and multiple barriers still exist. For people with lived experience, and some of us don't have the tools necessary for success in these chosen fields, so we want to try and address those barriers. The apprenticeship was intended to bridge these gaps and give people hands-on work experience in the field, and it's also a great way to build relationships with placement host organizations. So we're not only working with community, but we're also working with other organizations so that we can do better work, do things together. Apprentices are not promised positions once this program ends, but we focus on job postings that fit well and work with the entire application together. So we're making resumes together, we're doing cover letters, we are doing mock interviews with folks, we're providing references and recommendations to potential employers. And we also have organizations that have started reaching out to us when they they have job postings coming up for peer-based positions. Folks are actually reaching out to us now, so we're able to provide people to come in and get hired at their organizations. Yeah.
And I just want to add too that we have about 5 people who have already found paid work opportunities in the community after graduating the training and apprenticeship. So it's really great to see people be able to leave the program and continue on. So how we made it our own. So we are very transparent about our own experiences and backgrounds. So we often drew from our own lived experience in the classroom and bringing in our kind of, ways that we've dealt with things in the past in our own lives. We welcomed input and gave people ownership over their experiences in the program. We were clear, and we're also very flexible with our expectations. We had expectations, but at the same time, we understand that things happen. So an example of that would be like holding makeup sessions. So there was an expectation of making 14 out of 16 classes. But if that wasn't possible, we're willing to be flexible and be cooperative. We used humor as medicine. Both Steph and I like to joke around, and that was made apparent in our class. And we just think it's really important to bring your own personality into class and to laugh with people. It's something that we all like doing and can be really healing for people. We consulted with other harm reduction workers with lived experience in the community, and we brought them into our classroom. So the majority of our guest speakers, we were people with lived experience, which was really great because we could offer people, living, breathing proof that it is possible and that people can come through the program and go on to do really great things. We had a number of people who were graduates of the Hep C program, which we mentioned, who are now working full-time at South Riverdale. And we had those folks come into class and tell people what it's all about. Not assuming ourselves as the experts. So just because we're at the front of the class does not mean we're the experts. We're in a room full of people with varying experiences and abilities, and people are coming to the classroom with a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge is valid, and we tried our best to make everyone feel like they were, that their knowledge was appreciated. Making corrections and edits in real time. This is something people really liked that we did. Honestly, it was just because we didn't want to forget to do them, but we ended up just making corrections and edits in real time. So if there was a mistake on the PowerPoint that we were sharing and we were talking about it, we would just go in the presentation and edit it in real time, so that people could see that we're, that their input matters and that, that we care about what they're telling us.
All right, so I'm sure that many of you have seen this before. If you have not, this is the feelings wheel, and this is a really nice way to give language to emotion. Sometimes it's really tough for us to know how exactly we're feeling. And so I wanted to kind of bring this to everybody because the importance of check-ins at the beginning of sessions are really, really, really helpful in figuring out how you are going to run your session and how you're going to proceed. So this is not the only check-in that we have used. We try to do a different one each week, but this is a really popular one that people really liked because a lot of folks could recognize the top emotions, the strong, the happy, the mad, the sad, the fear, and the calm. But when we look underneath of that and we think about the layers of emotions that we can exhibit, then we can give more language and hopefully become more understood by the people that are around us. So I'll refer back again. We do have a guidebook that we've just finished up. It's beautiful. We're very proud of it. And at the end of this presentation, we'll figure out a way to get you guys access to it because you're going to see a lot more other check-ins that we use throughout the program.
So here's our training schedule. Like I said, this was inspired by the Toronto Community Hep C program. So about probably half of their workshop topics we covered. I'm not going to go through them all, but I will just draw attention to ones that participants' voice were the most helpful for them, which was the communication skills, the trauma-informed care, conflict resolution and de-escalation skills, as well as group facilitation. So these were all things that people really responded well to and voted as kind of their favorite topics in our focus group. But we found some room for expansion in ways that we would change the training program or add to it. And we would add topics such as sex work, HCV and HIV education, queer and LGBT education, which was all weaved into sessions, but we didn't have the capacity to have entire sessions on those topics. But we weaved these things into all of our sessions.
Guest speakers. So an integral part of this program was inviting experienced frontline workers, most of whom have lived experience, to our sessions. Guest speakers were linked to host programs so participants could meet their potential mentors in person prior to an apprenticeship starting. Participants' feedback of guest speakers was that they enhanced the session significantly, and it was nice to have guests present for questions and gaining insight into all the different aspects of harm reduction work. Guest speakers from programs, so Keep Sick, so people that were working in safe injection sites, people that were working in hepatitis C programs. We had Indigenous cultural training from our harm reduction, our Indigenous harm reduction program here. We also had folks that were counselors that wanted to talk about some of their experiences. Also counterfeit, so harm reduction supply rooms. We had lots of people that wanted to come in and talk about that. We invited a manager in for one of our sessions to kind of give us some insight on what managers look for in terms of like resumes, cover letters, matching up to job descriptions and things like that. And then we also had a guest agency come in who has a really, really great grief and loss program. So we had Breakaway Community Services join us and spend a whole day just talking about grief and loss and how it impacts us. Yeah.
So our graduation requirements. So as we said, must attend 14 out of 16 classes, or you have to attend a makeup session to make up for missed time. We were looking at people's demonstrated ability to set boundaries, as that's a recurring topic throughout harm reduction work. And we needed to see some strong boundaries in order to move on to the apprenticeship. Demonstrated appropriate behavior in class, respectful behavior towards peers, facilitators, and guest speakers, a demonstrated willingness to learn and work with others, and a demonstrated commitment to harm reduction. And I just want to note that we had 25 people graduate our program, and we had 22 people move on to their apprenticeships. So we're going to be talking about celebrating hard work and dedication. So this picture on the right is a picture from our graduation. You can see our Vice President, Shannon, speaking to the program. So we found hosting graduation ceremonies to be one of the highlights of the project. This was a day to celebrate people and to talk about everything that we've accomplished together. And people really responded well to it. For many people, this was their first graduation ceremony that they've ever attended. So we really made sure to make it really special because graduating this program was representative of much more than just finishing a course. It was proof that, someone that we can commit to something positive and that they could show up for themselves and their communities. And in a world where we're so often told that we can't do things, it feels really good to prove that we can. We had a graduate who was like throughout the course just saying that, their parents were telling them that they didn't think that they were going to graduate the program. And, we're kind of talking down to them. And I'm like, well, you're graduating. So, can't wait for graduation where you can show off. And it was really great to see people just feel so proud of themselves and hold their heads high. And we honored our graduates by having fresh fruit and cheese and vegetables available. We had ice cream cake, which was a voted on decision. We gave everyone goodie bags with program t-shirts, and we gave people flowers and things like that. It was a really special day both times. And again, we just tried to make it really special because people deserve to be celebrated.
So this is our first graduating class. And this was just a really, really exciting day. I'll mention also, we do see a little tiny person in the picture and some of the ways that we made sure that people had access. Our first cohort, this person really was not comfortable in having their child in daycare just yet. And so we just had this little person kind of join us every week. We kind of joke that Jasper is our youngest graduate of the Harm Reduction Worker Training and Apprenticeship Program, even before he turned 1. He attended every class. So it was just really exciting to be able to show that to you folks. This is our second graduating class. So we didn't get pictures of everybody because that day seemed to be a little bit more hectic. We had one of our graduates order like a bunch of pizzas. There was like a lot going on. So sometimes we just can't get those group photos for everybody, but we wanted to show these for our graduation pictures. Okay, so now I want to talk about what success looks like. And I think the most important thing that we can talk about when we talk about success is that it's about change. So it's changes we've seen in people since being involved in the program. So people are more confident. Their self-worth has increased. They're holding their heads higher. They are practicing self-advocacy and in multiple environments within their legal, with their legal issues, with housing, with medical appointments, and medical decisions. People are using their conflict resolution skills out in the community and in their own lives. We saw folks applying what they'd learned in class to different areas. Increased feelings of community belonging. So folks really created this really sweet little micro community, and it was reported as, really helping with people's mental health, feeling like you're part of something, somewhere where we can continue to come together and we can look forward to seeing each other and enjoying a meal.
So we just want to draw attention to the fact that like success goes far beyond just graduating the training program. There's so many things within that are successes in our eyes. So the importance of apprenticeship. So like we said, apprenticeships were something that drew a lot of people into this program. There's a lot of peer training programs out there, not with paid apprenticeships attached to them. And we saw the apprenticeship as an opportunity to learn in a supportive working environment where it's okay to make mistakes. So people didn't feel like there was as much on the line in these positions because it was through a training program. So it's okay to make mistakes sometimes, and it's okay to not know everything. It's an opportunity to apply knowledge and skills learned in class to real life. It was pretty cool. We've seen this happen like in front of our eyes. We had someone in our overdose response in a naloxone training session. We had someone leave that session and move on to saving someone's life the next day in front of the shelter that he was staying at. So it just really shows that, like, people want to learn and they want to know how to help their community, and giving people the tools and resources to do so is really important. The apprenticeship is also a low barrier way to learn, and it's an opportunity to connect to like-minded community members and make working connections, so people can leave their apprenticeships feeling like they're connected to the harm reduction community and that they have, people all over the city that they could connect to for jobs. It's a chance to familiarize themselves with formal workplace procedures and norms. Like we said, one of the criteria for being a part of the program was having a gap in your resume. So people have been out of work for a while coming into this program, and the apprenticeship was a way like to have a learning opportunity within the workplace, where again it wouldn't feel as much as like there's so much pressure on you. And it's a preferred learning style for experiential learners. This is an experiential learning opportunity. It's a way to use hands-on knowledge, and use everything that you've learned in the course in your apprenticeship. So it was a really great opportunity for folks.
One of the really fun parts of this program was the community event support that we were able to kind of set up. So people recognized that they were ready to start attending community events. And in this scenario, we were able to actually participate in a different way. So rather than being a participant, a lot of folks, they were supporting the event for the very first time. And so we've got a couple of pictures here. We had a Pride event where one of our apprentices were creating buttons for folks. We also did an Earth Day community cleanup where we cleaned up different kinds of harm reduction litter and other garbage in the neighborhood. We've got a nice list here of the events that we supported. So Strawberry Ceremony we have at police headquarters we don't have it. It's not run by us, but we support it every Valentine's Day at police headquarters as a way to challenge missing and murdered Indigenous women and how they're not the number of women that we have missing. Earth Day cleanup is what I talked before. Overdose Outreach Day was something that we were very invested in, and we wanted to make sure that we were part of that. The 519, which is a queer community center in the village, in the gay village in Toronto, and so we assisted with Pride there as well. Our own Pride events we were part of, and then community barbecues throughout the city. We wanted to make sure that we were participating, helping getting food to people and supplies and things like that.
And this was a really great way for us to work with apprentices as well. So we had people working at these events, and then Steph and I would come, and it was a really great opportunity to see people at work.
So this, hold on one second. Where are we here? So I wanted to talk about this image here, and I wanted to read it out for everyone. So this is something that we looked at when we were coming to the end, and when we were reflecting on how this program went. So we wanted to thank ourselves for how far we've come, because it hasn't been easy. And the talking point that I wanted to cover with this slide was that throughout this program, we've had a number of people going through some really, really tough life experiences, and that can range from like having your brother die, finding out that you have cancer, sleeping rough. We've had folks that have been intermittently incarcerated. There's a number of things that have happened that would make it really difficult for anybody to attend any kind of training program or job. And we had people showing up because they felt as though this was a safer place for them to be than elsewhere. And so we also really wanted to recognize how difficult that can be. And it actually really did show that people were super, super committed to this, and that they felt as though they had come to a safe place.
So we made a monthly meetup group, which was after our first training sessions ended. People were like, I miss you guys and I want to hang out. And people, people get in a routine of coming to class every week and engaging with the same people and sharing laughs and food. So we wanted to make a monthly meetup group in order to continue meeting with each other on a monthly basis so that we can just catch up and share resources and job opportunities and things like that. So we and we found that a lot of people after graduating, not only the training program, but also the apprenticeship program, excuse me, were facing just feeling like they're isolated and feeling like they're really missing coming to group. So we made this in order to kind of combat that and make people feel like they still had a chance to come meet together every month. And it was really cool because once we had our first graduating class and then our second graduating class, they would come together at the meetup and people were meeting each other and feeling really inspired by each other. We had in our meetups, we've had just like a lot of conversations and discussions about what's going on in the community and resources and things like that. And we're building like a resource list together. And it was just a nice way to have lunch together and check in with one another. You build friendships with the people that you're in class with. So it's really important to kind of continue that and continue to, connect with each other post-training.
All right, so this is probably the least exciting part of the presentation, but we did want to share some data, some numbers, and some reporting. We do have a lot of this in more detail in our guidebook. We also, if you wanted to see the full evaluation, we do have an email address at the bottom here if you wanted more details. So we had, training goals for three main themes: to help others in the community, to learn and build on existing harm reduction knowledge and lived experiences, and to obtain employment. A lot of people had a desire to help other people who use drugs, was the most commonly cited training goal. We cited earlier in the presentation how many graduates we have and how many people moved on to apprenticeships. We did have slightly more participants who identified as men, which is very interesting because within the city of Toronto, we find that there's overwhelmingly a lot of femme and non-binary identifying people. So it was really exciting to see some cis guys coming forward and really wanting to get involved. We had between 1/3 and 1/2 of our folks identified as queer in some way. We talked about history of drug use, and we talked about the percentage of history with criminalization. So we're looking at focus group results. So we had focus groups with our evaluator at the beginning and at the end of each cohort of training, because we wanted to really hear from people about what it was like kind of coming in beforehand, and then what was it like at the end, and what was missing and what was good about this. So the personal impact, we talked about this a little bit earlier as well. So self-confidence was decreased, social anxiety, increased rather, and a decrease in social anxiety. People were feeling better about themselves. It was an improvement in negative self-talk, so there was a decrease there. People found opportunity for self-reflection and new personal insights, maybe about themselves. Or relationships, and improvements to personal relationships, felt like community belonging increased, and there was also personal impacts that were noted throughout the focus group. Staying involved with the program. So people talked about what helped them stay involved, what kept them coming back every week. So the calm and supportive environment created by the facilitators was something that a lot of people wanted to mention. And this included both practical, like makeup sessions, and emotional, non-judgmental components. The convenient location supported engagement. So we are in the downtown east of Toronto, and this is a pretty accessible area for TTC, our transit system here. We also made sure that people had cash honorarium every time they came to class. They would leave with some cash in their pockets and also some bus tickets so that they could get to where they were going. And we also made sure there was a hot meal every time they came, and a lot of people really enjoyed that. Community belonging and harm reduction knowledge transfer. So we'll touch on this real quick. So average community belonging increased from 2.6 to 3.8 out of 5. And this is in comparison like pre and post training. Every person reported that they have used things they learned about harm reduction throughout the training in their personal lives. There's a lot of talk about new skills and knowledge that apprentices have developed on the job, especially listening, patience, observation, needs assessments, self-advocacy, time management, problem solving, and debriefing. Some folks talk about increased compassion, hope, and acceptance of others and how to treat people equally. So a lot of people talked about that. There was also a pattern of identifying personal learnings that participants felt made them better workers. And this included the importance of slowly building a foundation when working towards personal changes, increased understanding of and confidence to assert one's own needs, and a better understanding of my own feelings and my own triggers.
So just on the screen here, we have some quotes from apprentices. I'm not going to read them all, but this presentation will be accessible. So I'm going to read just a few. So if I wasn't in this class right now, I would be using, to be honest. So this is actually helping me to decrease my substance use every week, even just for a few hours, and that's an improvement. Even if it's just one day, hopefully it'll keep getting better. I've been kicked out of a lot of schools. People here have a diversity of experiences, and I felt a lot more comfortable. I don't have to hide who I am. My brother died last week, but I still chose to come to this program because I felt like I belonged somewhere. It's something I'm good at, and this program pretty much saved my life. I will leave it at that for those quotes, but you can see the impact that the program had on people.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the highlight of our presentation, I would say. We have some testimonials from some graduates. So we originally wanted to have a graduate join us today, but we didn't have that happen. So we got some testimonials from people. So I'm hoping this will work, but I'm going to play a couple of these.
What can I say about the harm reduction program at South Riverdale Community Health Center? Well, first, it gave me the tools that I could change the demographic of my life. And I started to realize that during my apprenticeship hours. Second, it also gave me utensils that I could use and understand my experience and addiction with drugs such as crystal meth. So overall, it has changed my life, you know, and I really, really am an appreciative participant for it.
This program has been such a transformative experience. I've made so much progress from the beginning to where I am right now. I'm halfway through my apprenticeships, and I already have prospects of a peer harm reduction job for when I'm done. I felt so supported through the whole thing. The training, the apprenticeships, we had so much support from each other. This program gave me hope. It helped restore my dignity and self-worth. It helped me to believe in myself. I'm so thankful for everything I've learned, all the skills I've developed. I've gained a better understanding of not only myself, but others in this community. We were able to build community and form real relationships and friendships with other people with similar shared experiences, and we learned so much from each other. So much commitment, hard work, and dedication was poured into this program by Emma and Steph. I'm so grateful and appreciative I was able to go through it, and I hope others can also have this opportunity and have their lives enriched the way I have. Thanks.
I would love to play the other two, but I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to keep going. But again, this presentation will be able to be accessed.
So we'll have a quick look here. So I mentioned that there were 7 organizations and 15 different programs that were interested and that did take on apprenticeship students or workers. And so we've just got a chart here just showing you the different programs that did take on folks and the different organizations. This is also available in our guidebook. So, and that's going to be like available as a PDF. So we're going to make sure that you guys have our email addresses. And if you just reach out to us, then we can ensure that we send you a copy of that guidebook if that's something that you're interested in.
And just quickly, I'm going to talk about some feedback from placement hosts. So these are the people that were hosting apprentices. And apprentices were described as having a wealth of knowledge, great communication skills, receptive to feedback and ongoing learning, had enthusiasm for the work and comfort in sharing their life experiences in ways that were helpful and appropriate. Some themes were increased program capacity, enhanced trust with service users, providing role modeling for service users, normalizing drug use conversations, regarding drug use and reducing stigma, making program spaces feel more caring and inclusive and welcoming. And for the most part, hosts described smooth transitions into roles. Some did identify ongoing learning and job readiness roles or needs that they were able to accommodate, such as the need to start the placement with more practical support tasks before moving on to a client-facing role. So while hosts provided immediate on-site support, the support from us was frequently cited as critical to the program and ongoing professional development and difficult conversations or problem solving and for administrative needs. And other things hosts noted, having introductory meetings as a low pressure way to interview and identify apprentices and match their interests with available placements. The flexibility of start dates and the roles were paid by South Riverdale. So those were all things that people liked about it.
So at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that we were going to talk about land acknowledgements. And so ongoing theme within our training program is that quite often people were reading out land acknowledgements and not really feeling connected to it in any way. And it kind of became lip service a little bit. So we wanted to try and flip that on its head and do something different. So we wanted to make it personal. We wanted to keep it mindful. We wanted to create meaning. We wanted to commit to action. And then we wanted to actually do that work. So I'm going to show you an activity that we actually did. And I'm going to just quickly explain that this is something that you can use. And so there is a printout that can be emailed to you if you want to do this on your own time. So what we did is we introduced different land acknowledgements every week for 16 weeks. And then we introduced this document here so people could create their own personal land acknowledgements. And once everybody did that, we actually created class land acknowledgements where we incorporated all that information from everyone's individual land acknowledgement and created one for each class. Those can be found in our guidebook. So we'd love to share those with you sometime because they are absolutely beautiful. And when it came time to have our graduations, we shared in the reading of our custom-made class land acknowledgement, which really, really hit things home for a lot of us. And people still talk about how incredible it was to actually create something and then present it to people at their graduation. It was just a really special part of the program. So
we'd love to hear from you guys. If there's any questions, I'm not sure if we have time for that, but we would love to give the space for that if that's allowed.
Yeah. And these are our email addresses. So if you want an e-copy of the guidebook that I've been talking about the whole time we've been here together, please email us and we will be able to send you a PDF version of our guidebook. And that's our presentation for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Oh, go ahead, Jillian.
Oh, I was just going to say in regards to time, I think we're out of time since it's 3:33 and I want to be respectful of our stop time at 3:30, but maybe take the conversation into the email space and continuing it there. But go ahead, Gwen.
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for, thank Emma and Steph for joining us today. That was an amazing and inspirational presentation. Thank you so much. There was so much content to share. Yeah. I'll just do a bit of a wrap up. As Jillian mentioned, we have the email addresses there on your screen for you to be able to reach out to them with your specific questions. And I just wanted to ask everyone here to join us today for thanking Emma and Steph for their knowledge and sharing that with us. Steph, oh my goodness, Jillian put in the chat the link to the evaluation, and you can also find it at the bottom of the session page. So we encourage you and ask you to please take a few moments to do that and fill it out. It's so helpful. And again, we want to thank our participants and everyone in the room for your participation and being able to be so present. We had a lot of people come and stay in the room, and that just shows the level of engagement.
Beautiful.
So please join us in our plenary room for the day 2 closing remarks, as Jillian mentioned. And I'd like to remind everyone that all of today's sessions have been recorded and will be available on the platform for you to watch at your leisure over the next 3 months. So thank you again. Emma and
I just want to quickly apologize for the rough start to our presentation. Don't know what was happening there, but yeah, excuse my probably bad language when I was dealing with that. Yeah.
I think we can all understand technical challenges. We've all been there. So
we're all at that point.
We all understand. So thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, guys. Bye. Bye.